JJ Meets World is brought to you by Goof Roof. Noel Scotch Anderson is a professional cartoonist and creative person. If you, your company, or publication are looking for some great artwork, let Scotch take a doodle at it. Scotch was the artist who wrote and performed our JJ Meets World theme song, a man of many talents who will gladly sell out for you. Logo design, custom caricatures, or full comic books are just an email away. Find Scotch's work and contact information at www.goofroof.com.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle's sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
When I go to a Chinese buffet, the thing that makes or breaks it for me are the cream cheese wontons. Because sometimes you'll go and they'll put too much cream cheese in the wonton, which is unacceptable. If I can't fit the whole thing in my mouth in one bite, no go. And then sometimes they'll do things like use almond cream, and I'm not a fan of that. I like traditional. In fact, the cheaper the cream cheese you can buy, probably the better. But the cream cheese wonton has got to be one of the more Americanized pieces of Chinese food that we consume on a regular basis. Because I can't imagine in ancient China someone taking a wonton wrapper and rolling up cream cheese. They probably didn't even have the refrigeration for cream cheese back then.
Yeah, I don't know when the advent of cream cheese was.
What's your go-to if you go to a Chinese buffet?
Any chicken that is fruit flavored, so like lemon chicken. Actually, I should say just sweet. Any variation of a sweet chicken.
So Hawaiian chicken, I know is popular.
Honey chicken. Yeah, I love all that stuff.
Like an orange peel chicken if they've got it.
That's my jam.
Yeah. I make the mistake the first time I go to a Chinese buffet is I mound my plate too much on the first go.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, this looks really good. I got to try this. I know a couple people who organize their plates accordingly, and because they don't want certain pieces touching other pieces. But to me, the biggest mistake people make is to not put your rice in the center of the plate, because that can be like the great divider amongst all the other foods that you choose, and that's your center. And then all the foods touch it a little bit, and so when you're eating that last bit, it's sort of like taking a trip around mainland China.
Eating at a Chinese buffet for lunch is sort of a tacit admission that the day is over. That you've given up and that this is it. Like, productivity's done. Everything else is done.
Do you know what makes up hoisin sauce? Neither do I, but I love it. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Hoisin?
I have no idea.
If someone says, let's get Chinese, do you assume that they're talking about a buffet?
Yeah, because, I mean, basically, that's typically where it would go. Just living in town here, are there any places that offer Chinese food that are not a buffet?
Yeah, like Nine Dragons isn't a buffet.
Oh, okay.
But they deliver.
Sure.
Which is nice. Sure. Lucy's, I don't believe, is a buffet.
Okay. Well, hey, you are much more boned up on the Chinese food.
It's important to me
environment in our area right now.
To find places.
If you're asking about Indian food, I could help you out.
Okay. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you about a horrible experience I had with delivery Chinese food. I ordered from a place. I'm not going to name them. And they bring the food in individual small paper bags inside of a large plastic bag. And so it took them forever, like an hour and a half, which is, to me, an unacceptable amount of time to wait for food. And they finally get there, and they're in a hurry to get me to sign the slip. And I sign the slip, and then they hand over the bag. And immediately I can tell there's something wrong with the bag because the bottom has the consistency and look of a water balloon if you were holding it by the top. And before I take the handles, I touch the bottom of the bag, and sure enough, it's all liquid on the bottom. And we're talking like maybe half a gallon of liquid. And I said, this doesn't look right. And now the guy tries to be an actor and goes, what? Oh my. Well, hold on. And then he proceeds to still have it in his hands. He's handing it to me, but I'm not going to take it from him. And he calls his boss and he goes, yeah, yeah. And he doesn't explain what's wrong. So obviously they know what's the deal. He goes, yeah, well, listen, we hardly ever do this, but my boss says I can give you this for half off.
Oh, come on.
And I said, if you're
Try again, sir.
Well, and my thought is, if you're willing to go 50% off for your initial offer, I don't want what's in that bag. No. I don't. If that's the beginning of our negotiation,
If someone said, hey, guys, I got this Chinese food on a discount. Does that go, yeah, give me a plate?
So I decline it, and I said I'd like you to return the money to my credit card.
Yeah.
And then I spent 3 months trying to get that money on my credit card. Finally, in the mail one day, I received a gift card from them in that amount, to which I drove right over there and said, hey, you sent me a gift card. I don't ever want to eat your food again.
Yeah.
You tried to give me slop. You tried to give me what they feed to pigs. Now, I'm not saying I'm above that because I've made some pretty amazing slop myself, but I don't want to pay full freight for slop. That's my point here. And they didn't even like add on some extra onto the gift card to like sweeten the deal. Be like, all right, listen, we knew he was going to spend $28. Let's just give him $35 and we'll make Papa happy. We'll quell the bear.
JJ, I have kind of an embarrassing Chinese food story.
I'd love to hear it.
So I'm wondering if the statute of limitations has run its way out. Well, this isn't live.
No.
So this is something that I'm totally cool with editing out if I feel like I've opened myself up to anything legally.
Interesting.
This would have been 2003.
Oh, you're way good.
So
unless you say you murdered somebody.
No. So I wanted Chinese food, and my roommate at the time, Ree, didn't want Chinese food, and our friend Rezel didn't want Chinese food, and Rezel's girlfriend at the time, whose name rhymes with Hachel Rothman, did want Chinese food. And so her and I decided to go get Chinese food, but we decided to also bring our backpacks with us. And so we went to this Chinese buffet, and we sat like in the far corner, as far away from like the employees as possible. And we would go up to the buffet and we'd fill up a plate with food, and then we'd go back and we'd take a bite, and then we just pour most of it into the backpack, which is lined with plastic grocery bags. And we just filled 2 whole backpacks full of this like slop of Chinese food. And then we brought it back to the apartment, and Ree and Rezel took it, and they like split it up into Tupperware, and then they just ate that over the next couple of days. But it was just like a blend.
Yeah.
It was just like a mix mash of Chinese food.
And you didn't layer it like my suggestion with the plate? Like,
nope.
You didn't go like, okay, we're going to put this in, then this, because it's compliment, and then a layer of rice, and then this, and this, and a layer of rice.
We didn't want our plates to look suspect when we were coming back from the buffet line. Because if it looks like, wow, that person has a plate of only rice, what are they doing? Right? Like, that would raise suspicions.
So I would imagine if you are a proprietor of a Chinese buffet restaurant and you're hearing this story, the first thing you're thinking of is like, well, that's not original at all. That happens daily in my business. In fact, while we're having this conversation, I am probably kicking somebody out for what we call the backpack scam. Sometimes when we'll bring in a large purse, fake baby dolls that they can pull like the head off and fill the baby doll with it.
Yeah.
I always enjoy a good story when someone sneaks, and you really think you see, because you think you got the best of them, right? By getting 2 grocery bags full.
Yeah.
They still made money off of you.
Well, I'm sure if they saw us, they're like, that food's from yesterday anyways.
Yeah, who cares?
You know.
It cost us 10 cents to make all of this, and we got you for $15.99.
Yeah, you really needed to go to These Langs Kids for some egg noodles.
Yeah, right.
You know, and some chunks of 3-day-old chicken.
Do you think that if Charles Dickens were alive today and he were to rewrite the story of Oliver Twist, he would include a scene in a Chinese buffet?
Like, please, sir.
Please, sir, no more. No more. I've hit my sodium limit for the week. Oh.
Do you have a job I can do instead?
So, interesting you talk about jobs, because our guest today, Mr. Jackson Spade, has had a series of jobs in his life that are interesting. One of them is in an industry that we all would like to know more about, but we're not brave enough to ask. Luckily, I am brave enough to ask.
Can I point out something?
Yes.
Can I point out that the transition to today's guest that you just used could literally be used for any guest we've had on the show.
Yeah.
Or will probably have. It's interesting that you mentioned jobs. Another creature that has a job.
Today our guest is someone who has an iPhone, which, as we know, was developed by the Steve Jobs. You'll notice as this podcast goes on, I can really take a single word and twist it into a guess. Like, let's say
that you always know the pivot's coming because you say, it's interesting that you mention chairs. You know who also sits in a chair? Our next guest.
Chair, it's the Spanish word for chair is aloha, and our guest here recently returned from Hawaii. None of that is correct, but you're going to find out some interesting things today. You're going to hear all about an industry, like I said, that you're just too afraid to ask about, but everyone wants to know about. And I even put a little fun game together for today where I give our guests some pieces, and you'll find out what the puzzle ends up being.
It's always exciting too when you meet someone. Like, this is my first time meeting Jackson Spade. You've obviously worked with him before. You've known him for a while. My first time meeting him, but I always like it when I meet someone and find out that we have a lot of shared love of nostalgic pop culture and things like that. Like, that's pretty awesome. And this dude has an I don't know. He has a massive amount of Transformers knowledge locked in his brain.
Yeah, almost to the point of where I didn't want to be friends with him anymore. Because he will, till his dying day, defend all of the Michael Bay Transformer movies with such vigor that you would think he is talking about Shawshank Redemption.
Well, I guess we'll let the audience decide if he makes a compelling case.
There you go. I like that. So if you're a Transformers fan, if you're a Chinese buffet fan, you can turn it off because we don't talk about that anymore.
It's in my past.
I guess buckle in because it's time for another episode of JJ Meets World with our special guest, Jackson Spade.
JJ Meets World.
All right, welcome to our guest, Jack Spade.
Hi.
Welcome to JJ Meets World, our podcast where I meet the world.
Aw, and I'm part of your world?
You are part of my world.
Aww.
I've known Jack Spade for a long time, but just recently he told me that he doesn't like improv. And he maintains that he truly does not like improv. He does not care for it, but he's always been very polite about it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, absolutely, man. I know it's it's a big part of your life and your and how you make a living. It's just not for me. On the flip side of that, you are not so kind to me.
I am not.
For my love of Transformers.
Yes, and that's where I want to start.
Okay.
I would consider you to be the Fargo, Moorhead, even I might be bold enough to say the entire Red River Valley foremost Transformer scholar.
It's quite possible.
So, how many Transformers do you have in your house?
In my house currently, there are upwards of over 900.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That's a lot of Transformers.
That's a fair bit, yeah.
You also will, to your dying breath, defend every minute of the Transformers movies in some way. You'll find a sliver of goodness.
Yeah.
Even in the last one where I said, that was just garbage, the robot Transformer butler, I can't believe Anthony Hopkins did it. You were still able to walk away with but wasn't that sequence where they did this pretty sweet?
And it was.
No. was not.
Cogman, the robot butler, was amazing. Anthony Hopkins actually did the movie because he is a big fan of Michael Bay. Really, and like. Look, can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, I feel like Anthony Hopkins is a big fan of Michael Bay, an actual sea inlet somewhere that is beautiful, and so he thought he was getting a vacation to go to Michael Bay for a seaside rest, and it turns out he signed up to be on Transformers.
That makes a lot more sense,
doesn't it?
See, so here's the thing. So like, it is the easiest thing in the world to shit on Michael Bay.
Yep.
Like
it is.
Like look at you guys, like masters of improv over here. Like, let's shit on Michael Bay because we're so fucking clever.
Listen, low-hanging fruit is still fruit, okay?
But here's the thing, like Anthony Hopkins went on, in an interview, he said he was a big fan of Michael Bay. Christopher Nolan is actually a big fan of Michael Bay. Not so much for, say the story, because I can be the first to admit, like, the story in most every Michael Bay movie is dog shit. But when you take, like, the visually what he can put on screen, that's pretty amazing. Christopher Nolan is a big fan of that. What's his cinematographer's name? Wally Pfister? Is that the guy's name? He's a big fan.
Either that or that's that drug that helps you with cholesterol. Pfister?
I think that's Pfizer.
Oh, that's the one. Okay.
That's
improv right there.
James thinking of a movie he just watched.
It is a Michael Bay film.
I have to ask, where do you place the Transformers animated film in the pantheon of Transformers movies? Like, if you were to rank them from best to worst.
So here's the thing, like I love the animated movie for what it was. I own multiple copies of it. I own all the animated series. I own the Headmasters that came after that. But as far as, like when you say, hey, the Transformers movies, like I consider the live action movies kind of their own thing. I consider the animated movies their own thing. Because at the end of the day, the animated movie and the live action movies, they're commercials for toys. Mm-hmm. And anyone that says differently is like a pretentious prick.
Okay.
Were you getting into Beast Wars then? Or?
I never actually got into Beast Wars. So like as a kid when I was growing up, I it was like 1984 when the original came out. So I was 5 at the time. That's like prime, like a 5-year-old loves robots, right? And then after a few years of collecting robots and watching them all the time, then I didn't have the internet back then. I didn't know what was going on. Like Transformers just kind of went away after the movie. Which I think a lot of kids had the same experience. They went to the Transformers animated movie, and Prime dies, Prowl dies, Megatron turns into Galvatron, like all these characters. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, this isn't real life. And then Transformers just kind of went away, and then they came back, and they were gorillas and orangutans and raptors and mosquitoes, and I'm like, what the blue shit is this? I'm gonna move on to something else.
See what I tell you, he will to his dying breath defend any Transformers lore fun.
I respect that. You're the same way with Captain Ron.
I truly am. The only downside is they don't make nearly as many Captain Ron collectibles as you would think.
What are there, like 2?
Yeah, there's 2. There's a bandana that I got from the set, and Martin Short's sister I got on the phone once to talk about a card he sent her. We were together when we met Weird Al Yankovic last summer when he came to town, and you brought the Weird Al Transformer that he voiced in the series.
Yep.
And he was pretty stoked to see that.
Yeah, because he's got some connections to the Transformers universe as fans of the animated movie, as you guys are. You may remember that Dare to Be Stupid was in the scene when they end up on the planet of the Junkions.
Oh my God, it wasn't it?
Yeah.
And doesn't Eric Idle play a character too?
Yeah, Eric Idle actually plays Wreck-Gar. And then years later, it was called Transformers Animated, came out like shortly after the first live-action movie, so like 2008, 2009. Wreck-Gar was reintroduced, and Weird Al voiced him. So he kind of came full circle with that character.
Isn't that nice? So what do you think about the McDonald's Changeables series that came out in 87?
I own them.
Do you really?
I do.
Do you know that a full set of those goes for about $250 on eBay?
Really?
Yeah.
Because I bought mine for like $5.
Really?
And this was recently.
You got ripped off, JJ.
You did. You got hosed.
Well, I like to support people in Arkansas.
Spent like 10 Bitcoin on those.
I love the McDonald's changeables. In fact, I feel like it's one of the highest quality toys that McDonald's ever put out. If you're not familiar with McDonald's changeables, it's a ripoff of Transformers because they obviously could not get some licensing rights at the time. But you would get it looked like a little figurine that looked like French fries, but then some of the fries would dip back and become a head, and then arms would come out of the box. And there's a box of McNuggets, and there's a Pop.
There's a Big Mac, a Pop, an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
I currently have one of my Megatrons holding the fries.
Oh, that's clever.
And the Big Mac is at Optimus's feet.
That's well played, sir.
Thank you.
Well played.
Thank you.
I remember collecting a lot of McDonald's toys growing up because there's a McDonald's near our house, so that was our special treat, is to get a Happy Meal. But I don't have any of those toys anymore. And when I look at some of the garbage that gets put out nowadays,
it's sad.
It is.
Because back in the day, like you would look for when a movie came out, a blockbuster movie came out, you would look forward to the toys. Yeah. Like when Batmans were coming out. Like I remember when Batman Forever came out. Remember the frosty glasses at McDonald's? Like those were super cool. And
they also did the VHS series at Christmas.
Yeah.
So if you bought a Big Mac, you could get Adam's Family Values for $3 on VHS.
Now here's one. I'm gonna test you on this one.
Please do.
We're talking about Ninja Turtles. Do you remember the Pizza Hut tie-in with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where you could get like the Ninja Turtles in concert?
Oh yeah,
No.
I had the audio tape of that.
Yeah,
I had that memorized. I actually had fantasies about staging it as a lip sync at my elementary school. I wanted to play Raphael because the girl I had a crush on, I was going to cast her as April so that I could have like a scene. I had it all planned out, dude.
Wasn't like the main single from that was like Coming Out of Our Shells?
Coming Out of Our Shells. It was the Coming Out of Our Shells tour. They went on Oprah for that, and Shredder came in, and it's weird. You should
Did
really...
Shredder kidnap Oprah and they had to save her?
No, he comes in because the premise is he hates music.
Yep.
He even has a song about how he hates music. And then, but no, in the Oprah episode, the Ninja Turtles and April, they're there, and they make like interspecies sex jokes.
They do.
On Oprah.
This is something that you need to YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good.
They were actually going to come.
Stones.
They were going to come to the Fargo Dome on that tour, and then it got canceled.
They also canceled the Mortal Kombat live
remember
tour
that,
was
yeah.
supposed to come to Fargo. I had tickets to that, and
So did
like,
I.
You guys got to get a refund. Sorry. Once a
Um,
year, Tucker will play or post on my wall the Super Mario Brothers ice show that stars the guy who played Mr. Belvedere as Bowser. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't think
Isn't that
that's
you
me.
who put that in?
That's not me who does
Have
that.
you ever seen it?
No.
Oh, it starts off with Jason Bateman, fresh off of Teen Wolf 2, and he's playing Super Mario Brothers, but he's playing it in a way where you can tell he's never picked up a Nintendo controller in his life. And they're like, "Hey, where'd Mario go?" And he just like disappears, and then it zooms into the television screen, and you're inside this ice arena, and it's a Super Mario Brothers skate show where everyone's in the big costumes and stuff like that, except for Bowser. Bowser is a human man with a reptile costume on, and it's the guy who played Mr. Belvedere. And he's got like 4 songs.
Wow.
And it's atrocious.
We're just like totally ADD right now, but while you were saying that, I don't know why, but like another song from that Turtles tape just popped into my head. Remember No Treaties?
Oh, yeah.
Was that like no treaties? Like they're not going to... No prisoners? No
Yeah.
peace?
Yep. It was like no treaties after the war. It was totally like 80s band.
But there's a rap track.
There
on
is a
there,
rap
too.
track
I
on
wish he
there.
was here. My coworker and good friend Tony Magnol has that completely memorized, and we'll just drop it
On the original Turtles soundtrack, the Turtle Power song, like that's one that if I ever hear it, it's just like boom, it just spits out of my head.
Out of a shell.
See, and
And Splinter has a song called Skipping Stones.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes, he does. Holy shit.
So did they just buy a bunch of did they hire someone to write some music and they're like, well, we'll just write around a way to make this fit into the turtles, because the last thing I think about when I think of Splinter is wistfully standing next to a body of water skipping stones. Can rats even skip stones?
Splinter can.
Or is he using? Does he talk about like being a ninja master? Well, like skipping stones, practicing my kicks.
Dude, this would have been like what, 1990?
Yeah.
So like 1990s, Jack loved this shit. Like I had it going in my tape player every day. Like, 2018 Jack realizes that they were probably like some, pretty coked out studio musicians that were kind of on their last chance at stardom, and they're like, "Hey, we'll give you the Turtles cassette. You want to do the Turtles album?"
I'm pretty sure their mouths don't move, too, right? Like their mouths.
Are they playing their own instruments?
Well, they're holding instruments.
They're holding instruments, yeah, but they're very clearly, like pipe. Because it'd be hard as hell to play the guitar in one of those like turtle hands.
I'm trying to
Like, couldn't do
remember
it.
the full who has what instrument. Doesn't Michelangelo have like a keytar or something? Or,
Yeah, something
I feel
like that.
there's a couple.
I hope that Donnie plays the drums,
I can't remember
because he already has a stick-based weapon.
Mm-hmm. There's a saxophone too.
What?
Yeah, it's magical.
Do they at least cover like the animated theme song?
No.
Nope.
No, this was like all original. There was nothing that was tied into the soundtrack of the original movie. There was nothing tied into the TV show.
So somebody had the rights to a live touring show, and they said, but you can't use anything that we've created here.
Must have, yeah. And
Well,
it
yeah,
never. And
New,
it never.
New Line would have had all the rights from the movie stuff, and at that point, I'm not even sure. I think Eastman and Laird had. Like, one of them had already sold off his interest, so only one of the two creators has ever really made any money off the movies, because one of them sold off his interest early on before he thought it wasn't going to be worth anything.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
I was just at the Mall of America, which has a bunch of Turtles-themed stuff now that it's Nickelodeon Universe. And I was watching kids get on the ride. It was like, it's called like the Mutant Masher or something like that. And I always thought to myself, well, I always thought a neat turtle ride would be a sewer-based roller coaster, where, an all-enclosed roller coaster where you're kind of going through the sewer, and maybe at the front of the cart you've got one of the turtles.
Got to avoid the turds.
Isn't that interesting that in all the sewers that they lived in and everything like that? Also, I don't know if you guys have ever done any remodeling, but when you have an open pipe that leads to the sewer system, you need to stuff a rag in there, because the fumes from it can make you very sick and can actually kill you. But the turtles are living down there, and they're bringing, what was the name of the kid in the second movie who was like crashing at their place for a while?
Well, he's the pizza delivery guy that they save when those guys are stealing stuff from the toy store.
Yeah, so
He's got karate skills.
They literally introduce him at the very beginning of the movie, and then you don't like see him again until no. In the first movie, the kid who's hiding out there is April's boss's
Danny.
kid.
Oh, yeah, it's Danny.
Danny.
Yeah.
It's Danny.
Danny,
That's because he runs away from Shredder's
what little
team.
bitch.
Right?
He runs away from Academy Award winner Sam Rockwell is who he runs away from.
That's right.
Lest we forget.
Don't forget about the achievements of Mr. Rockwell. It all started with the Turtles.
So, Jack Spade, you did something when I worked with you, which I thought was unique, which was you highlighted movies that this current poppy generation have not seen that they should see, because they've got awesome value. Now, they'll never have the nostalgic value of going to a Take-Two video and renting
Correct.
it. But they should still be taking it in and enjoying it. Can you pick, if you had to pick one movie that you think everyone should see at some point?
One Crazy Summer.
Really?
I love that movie.
That's an interesting choice.
You had all the John Hughes flicks and your Porky's of the world, which I realize like those two don't go anywhere together. But I'm gonna tie it all together eventually. So you got like all those like really classic like sex rom comedies of the '80s and the John Hughes movies, and like One Crazy Summer kind of combines all of that into just one awesome movie. You got John Cusack, you got Demi Moore, Bobcat Goldthwait, like so many good characters and just so many wacky just scenes in that movie. I remember when my wife and I first started dating, and this was like 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago. we're like, hey, let's introduce each other to a lot of the stuff that we like, So she really liked Harry Potter, so she, introduced me to that, and I introduced her to one of my favorite TV shows, and we watched that. And then as we worked our way down the list, I'm like, well, have you seen One Crazy Summer? And she's like, no, I haven't. I'm like, oh, we got to watch it. And it was like 3 minutes into the movie, and she's like, oh, it's one of these movies, huh? I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And she couldn't explain it. She was just like, it's one of those movies. And I'm like, well, yeah, like, explain that. It's a movie, but like what? And she's just like, I don't know, let's just watch this fucking movie.
And she just had to like suffer through it.
I think she got about like 5-10 minutes in, and she's like, okay, this is actually kind of funny.
Oh,
like,
okay, good.
Yeah.
So she changed her tune a little
right,
bit.
because I did say my wife. Otherwise, I don't know if that would have worked out.
Thank you for inviting me to your wedding, by the way. I had a really good the reception. Your actual wedding was in Las Vegas.
Yes.
You had a pretty amazing, pretty epic wedding itself. And then you had a friggin' phenomenal reception.
It was a 1-2 combo, man. Like, it was great. And the kicker, the amazing thing to me is, like, all of my friends who are already married told me, oh man, you're going to spend like $25,000, $35,000, $45,000 on a wedding. I'm like, bullshit, I am. Like, we went to Las Vegas on our 10-year anniversary. We dated for 10 years before we got married. So, wait, kids. Like, no one's in a fucking hurry. That's my message to you, is just wait.
And if it's over 10 years, are they waiting too long, or what's the deal?
If you gotta, cook that relationship in the oven a little longer, like, let it
simmer.
Yeah, let it simmer. Yeah. We went to Vegas, 10-year anniversary. We got married at the Graceland Wedding Chapel with one of the best Elvis impersonators I've ever seen in my life. He was like pitch perfect. Opened our wedding with an acoustic cover of Motorhead's Ace of Spades, which I did not request or ask for, and it did bring a tear to my eye. So that was super great, man. The chapel holds like 30 people. We had some of the nearest and dearest there, and that was great. And then a couple months later, on April Fool's Day, we had this, like you said, an amazing wedding reception at the sanctuary.
So when you got invited to Jack Spade's wedding reception, he handed you an invitation. And the invitation was by far the best invitation to anything I've ever seen. You and your wife, Rachel, recreated the cover of, or I guess the DVD of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Correct.
And it's back to back, but you got a tux and you got the wedding dress. And then you flip the invitation over, and it looks like it has the bonus features listed of like where it's going to be. I thought this is the most creative thing I had ever seen, so I said, well, gosh, I definitely have to be there. This is going to be the social event of the year.
Well, we really felt we had to step it up because your Christmas cards, my friend, are like superb.
Thank you very much. For those of you who don't get my Christmas cards, don't worry, I'll put you on the list eventually. I set a bar years ago when I did what I called Christmas 76. And Jill and I dressed up in period-appropriate clothing for 1976 and took a photo. And I have a big mustache, and I've got a turtleneck on. I was just in another podcast, I was talking to Noel Scotch Anderson about how I think people who wear turtlenecks are jerks. And so I was like, it fits perfectly. And it was Merry Christmas 76, as if a piece of mail had been lost and you got this Christmas card 40 years too late. So then I set a bar. And what was awful is I kept having to up that bar every year. And I did a 3D one that we sent out with 3D glasses, which is pretty good.
Which was spectacular.
Yeah. And then this last year I had, again, Noel Scotch Anderson draw a Where's Waldo version. And we sent out a little magnifying glass with it. And so it had Jill and I, our two dogs, and then our cats had died that year. So I had Scotch put our cats in heaven on little clouds with little halos. So I appreciate that. Cards, it's one of those weird things where I don't really care about correspondence that much, with the exception of I like Christmas cards, not other people's, just mine.
Right.
I like the creativity of that. But I also like a nice, strongly worded letter to a company that either pleases me or vexes me. Because nobody writes a letter. They go to an online forum nowadays and they say, gosh, when I walked into your establishment, it smelled bad and there was a stain on the floor and I had to wait 5 minutes in line to pay for my goods. Levy? Yeah, it does sound like a real pinched tummy on that person. But then at the same time, have you tried this nail salon? It's the best thing in the world. Gush, 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 gush. And when you go online and just click the contact us on their website, I don't feel like they take it as seriously as receiving a handwritten letter.
I will add my 2 cents on that because Rachel and I actually took a trip recently, like back in December, and we had a horrible experience on our flight. And I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be like, I'm going to write an angry word. Like, that's just not me. Like, I don't really give a shit. But it was an experience that we paid for first class travel, and we did not receive that. So I was kind of upset, more so for Rachel. I'll kind of give you the Cliff Notes version. So we when we travel, we'll stay in like a less than like a fancy schmancy hotel because we're never in a hotel when you travel, right?
Right.
But we want to travel comfortably, so we'll actually we'll lower the quality of the hotel to like up it to first class. That's just kind of our thing.
Because the worst part of traveling is the travel.
Yes.
And so if you can make it any better, why not?
100%. So on our flight back, we get to the gate and hand the lady our boarding passes, and they scan mine, and then they scan Rachel's, and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, Mrs. Spade, there's been a seat change." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" And they basically like moved Rachel to another seat in first class, but like not next to me, because someone requested her seat. Like it was at the front of the plane in first class, and he wanted that seat because he had like some ailment or whatever. And let me tell you, like when I found this out and the dude sat next to me, he was fine. Like and I was upset. And then like Rachel doesn't fly well; she gets anxiety sometimes. And the guy next to her was an absolute dickhead. Like he was a dickhead to her. He was a dickhead to the flight attendants. Just kind of like an unpleasant person, right? So like Rachel was kind of agitated the entire flight, and I looked back at one point and she was kind of crying, and we hit turbulence at one point and that freaked her out. Luckily the flight attendant was super awesome, like ran back to her as soon as they hit turbulence and made sure she was all right. Brought her a couple Jack Daniels, so she was like right as rain. But still, I'm like you pay for first class. You shouldn't have to deal with shit like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I realize as I'm saying this out loud, I come across as just like the most obnoxious dickhead now.
No,
because I'm like, oh well, when I travel first class, meh.
Here's the thing: what it boils down to, if that was first class, or if you had been at the back of coach, if you book 2 tickets at the same time and you request them to be together, whether you choose your seats or not, when you check in, any of that. Come on. I don't know why airlines will create problems for themselves.
Right.
Because that's what it seems like to me. Also, side note, I'm the type of person who I was on a first class flight recently where they had done the same thing. And it was only because of this. We were set to fly out of Fargo, but there was a storm somewhere else. And so the flight that was getting to Fargo that would park overnight and take us to Minneapolis for the first leg of our journey couldn't make it to Fargo. Now, you could drive to Minneapolis, no sweat. There's nothing in between. It's just this flight couldn't get from, let's say, Billings to Fargo to land so that it could take us the next morning. So they said, well, we can get you on the 10 a.m. flight tomorrow. Well, that's a moot point because my flight to the Dominican, direct Minneapolis to the Dominican, left at like 10:04. So I wouldn't have made my flight. And then I'd have to stay in Minneapolis overnight for the next Dominican flight the next day. And at that point, I'm already paying for this resort. Now, you think you sound like a rich asshole. Here I am saying, like, that's a whole day of all-inclusive I'm not going to enjoy.
Hey, why don't you just write a strongly worded letter, JJ?
So here's the thing. So I get up there and I think to myself, well, how are we going to – and I have a party of 6 people who need to get to the cities. And so finally, United – says, I probably shouldn't say their name, tight-deaded, said, well, what if we hired a cab to drive you guys to Minneapolis and then you can make your connecting flight? Fine, no problem. But you're going to refund our tickets from Fargo to Minneapolis. Well, I mean, you'll have to deal with that when you get home. Oh, that's the worst thing you can tell someone, right? We'll deal with it when you get home. So we fly down there, and then by the time there, so now we hadn't checked in for that flight because now the first leg of our journey's all weird. So we were all four going to be kind of mismatched. And I stood at the front of the plane and I said, hello, everyone else in first class. The 6 of us are traveling together, and we've made it possible so that 4 of us can sit in two sections of 2 seats together, but 2 of us are scattered. Are there any 2 people here flying on your own who wouldn't mind taking these random seats so that we could sit together? And blink, blink, they looked at me like I had just asked them, who's got some blood they wouldn't mind letting me have for the duration of this journey? And this just amazing guy named Stuart stands up and goes, well, I'll give up my seat. Sir, would you give up your seat? And he goes, sure. And so they move. Well, this guy ends up staying at the same resort that we're at. And so I made this new friend right off the bat, and thank goodness. And the whole time, one night I got pretty tipsy, and I'm like, thank you so much, Stuart. You just really made this. It's just a great experience. But I wrote a strongly worded letter after that. I've written strongly worded letters to candy companies. I've written strongly worded letters to all sorts of different things.
I just wanted to add the difference between like your approach to trying to get seats for everyone and my approach. Like, you know me, that like every now and again I get fairly amped up about things, and I get a bit aggressive.
Yep.
So when I was sitting in first class and I found out like the situation of what was going on, and this jackass that like comes sits next to me. First he sits down and I'm like, hey man, like we got separated. My wife and I, she's stuck next to this jackass. And before I could even finish my sentence, he's like, I actually need this seat. I was like, why do you need this seat? Oh, my knee, I have to have it in the aisle. And I'm like, you don't have a brace on. Your knee looks fine to me. Like, you need this particular seat so you can have your knee in the aisle. I'm just like, whatever. Like, I wasn't going to argue because I didn't want to get kicked off a plane.
Yeah, right.
So I just put my headphones in and I started watching Mad Max Fury Road on my iPad, which probably wasn't the best movie to watch. Amped up my aggression a little bit. And so I have my headphones in, and the flight attendant comes up and he's trying to talk to me, but I got the volume at full blast, and I just yank the cord out of my head, and I'm like, what? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Spade. I was just seeing if there's anything we can get for you. I'm like, no, I am 100% fine. Please just take care of my wife. For the duration of this flight, like, I don't need anything. So I'm going to put my headphones back in, and I'm just going to try to calm the hell down until we get to Minneapolis. And then as I'm saying this to the flight attendant, the guy next to me is like, well, I need this seat because I'm like, fuck your knee, dude. And he's just like, Urgh. And he just kind of like freezes up and looks the other way.
You were in the first row, like up at so there was like maybe like 4 more inches of leg room,
if that.
Yeah, at the most.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, that was.
Now, what about the person who was seated next to your wife? Did you try and finagle that seat away?
We did, like when we first got on the plane, and like Here's this guy. I'm going to describe this guy for you. See if you can picture him in your head. So he's probably in his like early to mid 50s. He should just let the hair go. Like it's very sandy blonde. He's like combing it back to try to salvage whatever is left.
So the same way I do my hair. Thanks.
No. Like you have like luscious locks.
Oh, thank you.
Compared to this guy, like the guy is clearly bald. Like, if he just had his hair down, like, the hair in the front would probably come down to, like, his chin. But he, like, pushes it all the way back so that it looks like it's well coiffed. But, like, you can see scalp, clear as day. He's wearing, like, a bomber jacket. He's got driving gloves. And, in fact, Rachel said that when they were on the plane, that's what he was looking at. He was looking up gloves, like driving gloves. And she also said that she waited until he dozed off to fall asleep to slap his leg to go to the bathroom. So I'm like, right on, baby. That's my girl. But he was a total prick. He was, we're like, hey, and Rachel did the talking, and like Rachel is much more convincing than I can be because she's cute. You have a cute girl ask you something, and chances are you're more likely to get the result you want. But she asked this guy, hey, my husband and I, we got separated for some reason, blah, blah, blah. We're still in first class. Like, we're just up in the front. And he's like, front? No, I'm not going to do that. Fuck that. No. Take a seat. And I'm just like, you talk to my wife like that again, and I am going to get taken off this plane. Like, I'm going to punch you in the throat.
So he thought he was better than the other people in first class? He thought he was the 1% of the first class who were in there?
Yeah. And yeah, Rachel said, like I said, he was a dick to the flight attendant. And they were like 4 rows back because like my all I was thinking the entire time I was on this flight was this plane is gonna land. I'm gonna very rudely like push myself past the jackass next to me, and then I'm gonna flip this dude in the back of the ear and hope he starts some shit with me. But that never happened because he basically like got up and took off the plane.
And this was on a return trip or on the way?
This was on the return trip.
Oh,
so thankfully it didn't. It would have ruined the mood a little bit. But that always sucks coming back too because you just want to decompress and not deal with that.
At least you would have been in like the Fargo jail.
True. No, I would have been in the Minneapolis jail because we went from Florida to Minneapolis and then Minneapolis to Florida.
Hennepin County, represent!
Yeah, Hennepin, what up?
I'd also like to talk to you about something that I find very interesting, which was for a chunk of your life, you were a DJ at strip clubs.
Yeah, for a combined total of like 12 years.
And you've got some pretty amazing stories, and not the kind of amazing that you expect coming from a strip club DJ. Occasionally we'll have people on this podcast who I would consider I'm the vanilla to their rich, delicious rum.
Okay.
Can you name one person that you weren't the vanilla to?
That's a good call. There's got to be somebody. We'll have like one of my aunts on. Well, even in that case, it probably doesn't fit. But for example, in one episode, we get to chat with some people who go to Burning Man. And so I was able to ask all the Burning Man questions I ever had. And so we'll start with this. What's it like to work in a strip club?
So I think the overall experience is kind of the same for everyone. The initial experience, for me at any rate, was a little special. So I was living in Alabama at the time, and it was like 6 months after my 21st birthday, and I'd only been to a strip club like one time, when I turned 21, and I was working for a friend of mine who him and his brother owned a bar, like a dance club, not like a strip club, and it was like a techno club, and he was teaching me how to like spin vinyl. So one night we're working, and the bar manager from this club comes in, and she's like, "Hey, we need a DJ like right now." And my buddy Danny points over to me. He's like, "Oh, this is Jack Spade. He works at the radio station. Like, he might be a perfect fit for you." And the club in Huntsville, town I lived in, was open till 5 a.m. on Fridays.
Whoa!
So the bar shut down at 2. And she was like, as soon as you get done here, come to the club and talk to Robbie. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll do that. And so I'm like, this could be kind of cool. Like, I'm like 21. I'm maybe working a strip club. Like, life is going to be great.
Right. Like, that's exactly the kind of story you want to tell to all your other 21-year-old friends.
Yeah, exactly. And like, oh, dude, you work at the strip club? Like, when are you bringing strippers home? Like, when is this? Like life was about to pick up, right? So I get to the club. It's like, probably by the time I got out of the club in there, it was like 2:33 in the morning. I asked for Robbie, and he's like, "Are you Jack?" And I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "I'm going to ask you one question, and I want an honest answer. Do you smoke crack?" And it threw me for a loop because it wasn't the question I was being expected to ask. And I'm like, "No, sir." And he's like, "Okay, because I just fired our piece of shit, no good DJ tonight because he walked in for his shift and he's like ruffling through his bag looking for something and a fucking bag of crack and crack pipe falls out." And I'm like, this is exactly the place I want to work for the rest of my life. And I was like, "No, sir, like that's not an issue. I enjoy drinks from time to time, but that's it." And he's like, "All right, go talk to James. You can start on Monday." I was like, holy shit, like that was the easiest job interview ever. And that was it. Like, I went and I talked to the DJ who still to this day is the most amazing club, like not like spinning DJ, but like there is no one I have ever met that can captivate a crowd for as long as he can. Like this dude was fantastic. And I talked to him and I learned a lot from him, and that was it. That was basically the start to my what ended up being an overall 12-year career as a strip club DJ.
Okay. I just wrote down 3 names.
Okay.
And they're 3 stripper names, and you tell me the song that goes with these names, okay?
Ooh, okay.
So, like, next on the stage, we got Chastity.
In the still of the night. Yeah.
Okay.
That's number
All
one.
right. All right, everyone, put together for Chastity. All right, next on the stage, we got Emerald.
Ooh, what would Emerald dance to? I'm thinking I would fire up a little Bad Girlfriend, a little Theory of a Dead Man for that one.
Okay. Now, here's the one. She's wearing a schoolgirl outfit, and her name is Grace.
So this is where I'm going to throw you for a loop, because there are some dancers that don't get the correlation between like outfit theme and music
The
theme.
pageantry? Yes.
They don't get the pageantry.
I know. It drives me crazy.
So Grace, dressed up like a schoolgirl, is probably going to be dancing to Superman by Eminem.
Oh, my God.
I just blew your mind, didn't I?
I did, because I was expecting a little Hot for Teacher or something like
yeah,
that.
that's what
but
you would
she's
think.
not a teacher.
No.
She's the student.
Right. And the students are listening to Eminem and fucking.
I like that.
Yeah.
So give me like 3 don't do this, like, for the patrons, because I think that's the thing.
Oh.
Some people don't realize that when they're being that person at a gentleman's club.
You know, that is a great question. I love that question. I've been out of the strip club life for many, many years now, and I still tell people, you know, I'm like, just fucking behave yourself. Like, act like a normal person. There are so many people that I met in the club that I then met out of the club. And I'm like, dude, I've seen you, Mr. Business Professional, like sniffing a stripper's ass with $1 in your mouth. I'm like, fuck you, like, be an adult, you know.
I have always thought that it must take giant courage to be a well-known person in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and to go to the club in full view of everybody else. I would think that you would wouldn't you take like a weekend and go to the cities and just get it all out of your system where you aren't going to get recognized? For example, do you ever bump into any of your teachers?
Yes. I did. And I will not name names.
Please
to protect
don't.
the innocent.
Yep.
But
we shy away from almost nothing in this podcast, but I don't want to be known as the podcast that outs the hardworking educators of this town who happen to enjoy that type of life.
It was great. Like, I ran into like, one comes to mind right away, and that didn't surprise me. And then there were 2 others that I can think of right off the top of my head. But a lot of students that I went to school with that I was never friends with, that I never ran in circles with, that would come in and somehow remember me. And they're like, "Hey, Jack, like, we went to high school together." I'm like, "Oh, right on." Like, I was not the most popular kid in high school. Like, I was, I kind of kept to myself. I just kept my head down and kind of did my own thing. I had a few, friends I hung out with, but I've never gone to a high school reunion. It's not my thing. But then people come in like, "Oh yeah, we had like this class together and that class together." I'm like, "Right on, man. Well, sorry that I'm an asshole. I don't remember you, but whatever."
Why are you paying attention to me? Shouldn't you be looking at the stage?
Yeah. One kid I remember in particular who came up to the DJ booth and he was like, "Oh, dude, yeah, man, like, we had all these classes together and stuff like that." And I kind of remembered him, like, as he told the tales. And within, I would say, about 45 minutes, the next time I saw him in the club, he was being violently thrown out for slapping a stripper's ass.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so obviously be cool is one of those things.
Yeah, man,
just tell people.
Be cool. Don't be, if you can't control yourself around a naked woman, and you're a business, or man. Oh yeah, they got the dude strip clubs too. Like, have fun. You can have fun and not be a jackass. Like I guess that's the biggest thing I could ever say to people. The whole like, oh, this stripper really likes me. Sometimes that actually does happen, but the guys play it all wrong. Like there are regulars at the club who will never spend $1, but they'll have all the attention from the dancers because they will just listen to them vent about their problems. So, like, if you want to go in and be that guy, cool. Like, you don't ever have to spend $1. But then when you're like, hey, would you like to hang out sometime? Don't be offended when they say no.
They're like, I don't think so.
No. But, and then on the flip side of that, there have been times when I've been out and about and I would see a dancer with someone who was, clearly not a boyfriend or significant other, and they're at, a store buying stuff. And I'm just like, oh, hey, how's it going? Big hug. And when I get in close, I'm like, hey, get me an Xbox out of this.
I'm going to give you a brief excerpt from a famous children's book. Okay. Would you read it in your strip club DJ voice?
Okay. I will, hand it over, but I will preface it with, I never really had a strip club DJ voice.
So you just talk just like this?
No, I brought it up a little bit, just in the sake of not boring the crowd. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with radio, like if you talk on a mic, you just like bring the voice up a little bit. Yeah. You bring it up here, hey guys, let's go. You add some excitement to it. Okay. But I never did all right guys, coming down to the stage right now. Put your hands together, get to Sniffer's Row. It is candy.
Do you have a favorite pop culture strip club DJ that you've ever seen?
DJ Request from The Goods.
Yeah, I liked The Goods. That was a good movie.
Even doing that like fake puker DJ voice wrecked my voice. I couldn't do that all night.
You get you some more water?
I'm good.
Okay.
But yeah, so and that was the guy James that I met down south. Like he never did that either. He had like just a naturally gravelly Wolfman Jack type voice, and he was one of those guys where when you saw him talking and speaking and you heard him, you just like, what is this dude telling me to do? Like, I'm gonna fucking go do it. Like he was just that
good and commanding.
Yeah. He wasn't one of those like cheesy rhyming DJs, like there was a guy that I worked with and that's all he did was come up with like cheesy fucking rhymes, like all the way from California, Beverly Hills 90210. Oh my God, she's hot. I'm just like, no, dude, like.
Okay, I'm going to give you a second to read that so that you can get a thought on it. I'm going to tell you this. Circling back a little bit, the pageantry in modern day exotic dancing is lost. It's just awful. You can have somebody who is dressed up like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, but she's not really giving it her all because she should be dancing to a techno remake of the Yellow Brick Road or something like that, or at the very least a song from The Wiz, which actually has got like a beat, like Slide Some Oil to Me. I could definitely see that. So, and I believe in this so much so that I have told friends of mine who've confided, like, I thought about maybe going out to Williston and stripping for the weekend. Where I said, let me coach you. Let me be your Michael Caine in Miss Congeniality, and let me direct your stage show. Now, we'd have to come up with, I would say 5. You'd have to have 5 acts, because by then you can cycle through to, you can redo them over. But they would have very specific themes that, to me, like, plays to maybe a niche audience, but that's the person who's going to triple the amount of money they spend with you. For example, let's say you've got a girl who dresses like Wolverine, right? So there's a Wolverine theme to it. I don't even know what the song is.
Brown suit or yellow suit?
I think yellow suit.
Fine.
Yeah. Does that diminish the amount of money that you want to get interested in?
Brown suit Wolverine's better, but whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. But you go with it. Or maybe they're dressed. No, here's the thing. They're dressed like Little Red Riding Hood, and the song is Hungry Like the Wolf.
So I will interject right there for a moment. A lot of clubs around the country will bring in like feature entertainers. Yeah, like porn stars. So, sometimes like a higher end porn star. Sometimes like a mid level, like you might remember that name from a previous Google search.
Yeah.
And they sometimes will do, they'll come out with the Little Red Riding Hood outfit. They'll come out with the Wonder Woman outfit. And they'll do like a theme dance to that. And some of them are actually really, really good. And some of the house girls will see that and they'll be like, oh, this chick just made a lot of money on Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's hot right now. Like, I'm going to do that. And then so they go out and they get a Wonder Woman outfit and they bring it to work the next week. And they're like, hey, like, play this for me all the time. Like, play the same set that you did for her. But then she doesn't do all the moves.
Yeah.
Doesn't incorporate all, like you said, the pageantry into it. And it's like, you wanted the Avengers and you just got the Justice League.
When I watched the movie Striptease with Demi Moore and I saw her practicing her Annie Lennox routine, that's what I assume that there's rehearsal and practice, but there's probably not. Most people are not really giving their all into it. Am I right with this?
You are 100% correct, man. There's a lot of dancers that are just there to make money.
They do.
And they do. Yeah, they definitely do. There are some that actually want to produce some stellar pole tricks, and there are some girls that when I worked there that would go in early and they would be busting out some pole tricks and they would get into competitions and stuff like that. So there are a few, but not many.
Interesting. All right, now I've given you, I hope, an appropriate amount of time. You don't have to do the whole thing, but this is an excerpt from a very famous book for children written by a man who wasn't really a doctor. Go for it.
All right, coming down to the stage right now. Then our fish said, look, look, and our fish shook with fear. Your mother is on her way home, do you hear? Oh, what she'll do to us, what will she say? Oh, she will not like it to find us this way. Dollar bills down to the stage, gentlemen, it is tipping time.
Yes! Oh, sir. That was delightful and way better than the feature film version of that book as well. Oh, you really nailed that. Oh,
and it kind of tied together nicely because didn't in that film like the cat call someone a dirty hoe?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, they really missed the mark in that. That was just awful.
Vague Dr. Seuss related. Let's go from strip clubs to Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, I do a lot.
So they got that. They got that Grinch movie that they're making, an animated Grinch movie.
Yep, I already hate it.
With Benedict Cumberbatch as the Grinch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I call him Benny Cumbo. So I always like, oh, Jill, do you see who's on the program? It's Benny Cumbo.
Do you not like it because it's just another remake of the Grinch, or do you not like how it looks?
It's a mixture. I don't like how it looks. I also don't like the trailer dropped recently. Who knows? Like, someone could be listening to this in 2025 and it's already had 3 Grinch sequels by that point. But The Grinch is a story about a guy who's an isolationist. His only outside contact is that dog. And somehow that dog is still cheerful and happy and hopes that the Grinch can overcome his Grinchiness. But both in the live-action Jim Carrey version and in this one, they have him going down to Whoville and yucking it up with the Who's all the time. And I hate that. I hate the Chuck Jones version and the book version are perfect because he's all by himself. And even when he decides to steal Christmas, it's not like he goes down there and, he's hiding out while everyone's there. He waits until everyone's asleep. The first time you see him interact with something that can actually talk back is when Cindy Lou Who comes downstairs and thinks he's Santa Claus. And then he lies to her saying that he is Santa Claus. And that's when you see how truly evil the Grinch is. He's lying to a little girl and stealing her Christmas at the same time. It would be like walking downstairs and having your parents be like, hey, we're getting divorced. And by the way, you got to old yeller your dog at the same time. You're like, well, see, get this done.
This is why this podcast needs to take off and get you into a position where, we have to sit through those 3 Grinch sequels, but then we get to make the gritty reboot.
I'd like to see the Grinch ruin a different holiday too.
Oh, it's been done.
It has been.
Yeah, it's called Holidays on the Loose, and it was a made-for-TV special where he ruins Easter and he steals, I think, color from a bunch of stuff too. And the Cat in the Hat's got to stop him from doing that. Yeah, I know a lot about Dr. Seuss.
Doing a little Dr. Seussiverse in that one.
Yeah.
Interconnected.
Actually, no, it's Seuss on the Loose. It's Holidays on the Loose. But Seuss on the Loose would have been even better. But then it sounds like he just escaped from prison. Do you know in the late 90s they were going to do a full-length animated Grinch, and they released a couple of the images that they had been working with.
I've seen those, yeah.
With Jack Nicholson doing the voice of the Grinch is how it had originally been planned. And it looked really gross. The drawings were very detailed and showed a lot of the cracks in the Grinch's face. And I think that would have been neat. And don't get me wrong, I think that there is a place for a great family film where you go see the Grinch. I think one of the problems with the Grinch nowadays is, and I don't mean to get on my soapbox too much here, but
this is JJ Meets World, man. Go for it.
We live in a world where everyone is now aware of other holidays that are celebrated by people, whether it's a Hanukkah, or you're in a family that doesn't celebrate Christmas or a Christmas holiday. Maybe you are celebrating a winter just break type thing. And the Grinch is only focused on Christmas. So it's not like it's, the Grinch who stole the holiday family gathering. It's the Grinch who stole Christmas. And I think that that's the one thing that has dated the Grinch, is that it really is just about a single holiday, because everyone's like, oh, well, it's because the Grinch is an atheist. He hates Christmas. Also, you never see a priest in Whoville. I would like
this
to
took
know.
Some turns.
Yeah,
Dude.
I would
Damn,
like to know.
I did not know we were going.
The Who's version of Jesus Christ was. Are they following the same Bible as we are? And, technically, if you follow the lore that Dr. Seuss has put out and his estate, it's all on a snowflake, but it's the same town as Horton Hears a Who, which is on a speck of dust. So I don't know. We're crossing all of these things.
Is this like the Silmarillion of Dr. Seuss?
It is.
Basically.
It is.
I forgot what I was going to say.
But that being said, I think Benny Combo was a horrible person to make the Grinch.
I always thought the Who's seemed like a genetically modified race. Like a weird subgroup of people that were like living in a petri dish or something.
Yeah.
And I always saw the Grinch as like a virus in that petri dish.
So like the Who's were like the blonde-haired, blue-eyed master race?
Or the Morlocks,
Ooh.
It could have been the Morlocks.
I went Nazis, you went Morlocks. That's right on.
A lot of eugenics going on under the context of Dr. Seuss books.
That being said, have either of you ever read the Butter Battle book? It's another Dr. Seuss.
That's one of my favorites.
It is.
One
it's
of the
about
best.
the arms race. It is so flippin' good, and to this day, it is just amazing. And if anyone ever says, "Gosh, I don't really understand what was going on between the United States and Russia during the Cold War," that book sums it up perfectly. I know everything I know about being passionate about the environment thanks to the Lorax. I also understand that it doesn't matter if I'm a star-bellied sneetch or a sneetch with no stars upon theirs. We're
Did your
all
teacher
the same.
make you pick sides? Because mine did.
Really? On
My
the Butter
first
Battle
grade
book?
yeah. She wanted to see, like to explain the division.
Are you
to
familiar
us.
with this?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I did Butter Side Up. I'm pretty sure I did Butter Side Up. I can't fully remember, but because
that's what you were used to?
Well, yeah, I mean,
sheep?
Because the bread's sitting on a table. I'm not usually holding it, upside down like this. That doesn't make much sense to me.
That's
Yeah,
why I actually
but-
butter my bread like that.
But might I say, I can't believe I'm going to get this deep into it. The thing about butter side down is when you put it in your mouth, the butter comes into contact with your tongue first, and so you get a much saltier, if you like the taste of butter, that sweet, creamy taste, you're going to get that first if you're butter side down, versus if you're butter side up, it goes in, and the dry toast is where your tongue. So
I thought it was merely how they spread it. It's also how they eat it?
they eat it too.
Okay. Because
Eat
I
their
remember
bread,
seeing
yep.
an illustration of a guy buttering it,
Yep.
and because Dr. Seuss liked sloppy butter, it'd be like falling
Yeah.
all over the place. Now that's making a mess. Like that's clearly the wrong way to do it.
I believe they say eat their bread butter side up or butter side down.
Okay.
I will take when I have lefse, I will butter the hell out of the inside, roll it up, but I will also put a little layer on the outside and then eat that butter side down. So just like you said, the butter hits the.
You're not just putting butter on it though, right? You're putting on other stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, you put occasionally, and I'm a weird one for this because everyone says like, oh, you got to put like sugar on it, and I was never like raised in a sugar on lefse house. Like we had Cheese Whiz on our lefse.
Wit Whiz, huh?
It was so good.
I never even considered that possibility.
I just opened your mind to a whole new world.
I want to say this is why we're friends, Jack Spade, because I've always viewed lefse as a savory add-on and not a sweet add-on. I don't do sugar, whether the brown or white sugar, it doesn't matter. I dip that in gravy.
Yeah, that's good.
That's where I'm at.
Yep.
And I love it. Tucker is a bit of a cheesesteak, a Philly cheesesteak connoisseur. He's got a rating system. He tells so when he goes to a town, he's sort of forced into eating a Philly cheesesteak.
I used to have a rule. I don't follow it anymore because I was feeling health effects from doing it too much. I used to have a rule that if I were eating at a restaurant that has a Philly cheesesteak on the menu that I haven't had before, I have to eat that now before I eat anything else on the menu. And I went for about a year doing that. And most of the time I would take a photo and rate it on Facebook, but I stopped doing that. I'm trying to remember what the highest rated one I ever had was. I think it was a tie between one here.
He rated the bread, the quality of the meat.
I would bring it all in, but each wouldn't get its own rating. Like the sandwich itself would get a rating as a whole.
Because you can't be like, I'm going to take the bread from this place and the meat from this, and you can't Frankenstein that up. You got to like have it as it comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is the best place in Fargo?
Well, my favorite is Grand Junction.
Yeah,
and actually the owner of Grand Junction, he is from Philadelphia, and kind of brought some of the lessons there to that Philly, but they don't make it like they make it in Philly here. Here they add, I think it's teriyaki sauce to the meat.
Because they need the sauce to cook it in, right?
Well, they're flavoring the meat because steak, like it's usually thinly sliced ribeye, and that's actually pretty bland, like a cut of meat. So you want to cook it on a low heat, get it juicy, but it's the juiciness that you really want. Yeah. The cheese is there to add that like zesty flavor. But these guys, we
just lost a lot of listeners for you saying that ribeye is a bland taste.
Thinly sliced ribeye
doesn't matter. It still has all that delicious marbling, and fat is the highway to which flavor travels.
Of which I love all of that, JJ.
Good.
Do not step up.
I'm gonna tell you right here, right now.
That butter battle.
I
didn't realize we're two sides of the fence on that one.
You've already chosen. You chose in first grade.
That was 6 years old, JJ.
Gentlemen.
I couldn't even vote then.
You should have.
You could have voted.
That was your first vote. That was your first democratic process.
I was asked to choose sides.
And here's the thing: I probably would. I eat mine buttered side up as well, but it just bothers me that you didn't even take the time to think about it. You just followed. You said, "This is all I've ever known. This is all I've ever known."
Listen, in our household, we butter our bread on the upside. And if you don't do that, you are not an American.
Wow. All right.
Okay. So
get there.
I like that. You can send all of your correspondence. Every strongly worded letter that I know you're going to come up with.
There's going to be a new hashtag like butter side down.
I think it should. There's so many things that are better from my childhood than they are today, and I wish that they would bring it back. Somebody told me once that I was sexist because I did not care for the new Ghostbusters.
Which is bullshit.
I think so too, and it has nothing to do with sex because I think that those are very talented comedians that they cast in that movie. They just made a bad movie. If that had starred all the original people from it, and I saw that, and that was the plot line, I would still say this is a bad movie.
If you took and even to one further, if you took like originally they talked about like having like Seth Rogen and Franco,
the sons of
yeah, and if you took those female characters out, replaced them with those male actors, that movie would still be a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a horrible villain. Horrible villain. I don't even know what they were thinking. But it bothers me when people tell me that that they label me something because I didn't care for something. And it's like, no. If you are jumping to that conclusion, this must have been really bad.
Yeah, like if you don't like Black Panther now, clearly you're racist.
I've heard people say that, like, oh, these reviewers didn't, obviously have some racial ties because they didn't care for Black Panther that much. And I was like, well, there is about 25 minutes in there where it gets to be pretty boring. Mm-hmm. And also, if they're on the top of the mountain, you should see their breath.
One would imagine.
Like, these are just simple things. I don't know how you guys feel, but whenever I watch a television show or a movie that's based in winter, if we're living in a world where they can CG the mustache off of Superman.
Well, they can try to.
Yeah,
right.
They can make an attempt. They can at least make an attempt to make a better-looking snow. I think snow is one of the worst effects. Cold weather is one of the worst effects that we see in movie and televisions today.
Especially when people touch it, because it you can tell it's like a soap flake or something that doesn't have any of the properties of actual snow.
Where it like lands in someone's beard or like on their face and it doesn't like instantly start to melt. It just sits there.
I'm sure the people in LA, they're like, okay, North Dakota.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's snow. Get a mountain.
That's how people in California sound. They sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I've been to California.
Now.
No, they all sound like this. I'm in California.
Welcome to
Hollywood.
I saw Hurricane Heist this weekend.
You're the second person to bring that up to me today. And what'd you think?
It was fantastic. But I mentioned this because you were talking about the weather effects. The weather effects in this movie were fantastic.
I should hope so. It's a movie solely based around a hurricane.
Right. But, you have other movies that I've seen where, a weather situation comes up and, like, you can tell everything is CG, like everything. And this very well may have been too. But there's like, kind of like how you say the people that, the snow lands weird, it doesn't look right. So this is what looked weird to me. So, like, I'm totally immersed in this movie, right? And it's a fun movie. And you got this guy with this multi-million-dollar like storm chaser car that like plants spikes into the ground whenever it parks so the car doesn't blow away. But then there's like 100-mile-an-hour winds, right? And there's cars that are flipping over, and there's houses that are falling down. And this guy's gonna get out of his car, and he gets out of his car, and he puts forth the I'm making some tough steps because the wind is. But his hat doesn't go anywhere. Or he's not blown away when he climbs up a ladder and like there's debris coming at him. I'm like, come on, man, you put so much work into these effects, and now I have to suspend my disbelief for this shit.
I think that's the type of thing where if that's what you walked away from with that movie, was like, I really enjoyed it, but his hat didn't blow away. That's why I love you so much, Jack Spade. Like, you can look past everything else. The tagline for this movie is $600 million at 600 miles per hour.
So can I? And this is going to be. It doesn't spoil the plot. It doesn't spoil anything. But it is.
Oh, don't worry. It's fine. Yeah.
It is a slight spoiler, and I want to tell you the exact moment when I became 100% on board with this movie, and it was 3 minutes into the movie. All right. So the movie starts out in 1992. With like the two kids, like the two main characters of the movie back when they're kids, right? And they're in their dad's tow truck, and they're trying to outrun a hurricane. They're trying to get home before it hits, and a tree gets blown down, and he has to swerve to avoid it, and he gets hung up on a rock. And he's like, boys, the hurricane is right behind us. I need you to get into... Also, side note, sorry I get ADD, but side note, everyone in this movie has a Southern accent, but it's not a consistent Southern accent, because everyone in this movie is like British or Australian. So you got like a Cajun accent. You got like a proper, Southern accent for a little bit, and then it slips back into Australia, but it's still great. So anyway, the truck gets hung up on a rock. These boys run into an abandoned house, and the dad is trying to like take the tow truck and hook it up to a piece of like farm equipment and like pull himself out. And he gets out, but then this grain elevator gets blown over, and it rolls the dad over, and it kills him in front of their two kids, right? And the kid's like, oh my God, and they get into the truck to seek shelter. and the storm is coming so hard, and it's just like like, oh my god, what's gonna happen to these kids? The roof gets blown off the car, and this is like the exact point I was on board for the movie. So the camera pans up into these like horrific clouds, and a skull appears, and it goes ha ha ha, and then hurricane heist. I'm like, oh my god. There were 3 people in that movie theater, and like it was me and 2 friends, and you can ask both of them. I stood and applauded, and then sat back down and enjoyed the rest of that fucking movie.
There have been a couple times where I have enjoyed something and I've had to defend it up, down, left, and right to people. It's a Lady in the Water. And I know, yeah. Oh, don't give me that face, Mr. Hurricane Heist. There's going to be some couple who's listening to this and like, oh, we were listening to JJ Meets World, and that Jackson Spade said Hurricane Heist is kind of fun. Shall we take that in at the Cineplex night? We should.
How old is this couple?
They're, one of them is 85 and the other one's 20.
Yep. That sounds about right.
In my idea.
And they would be delighted with this film.
And they both would take away something different from it,
Yeah.
Well, listen, our time here is ending because I've got to make it to Hurricane Heist.
Yep. I'm going to go for round 2.
I'm already sold. Don't get me wrong. I'm already sold on it. But Jack Spade, thank you so much for coming in and having this chat with us.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I always appreciate the chance to spin some yarns with you.
And if people are interested in some of your stuff, do you have an online presence that you want people to check out? Or do you want to give a pitch to something someone should check out?
Well, if you, I guess, follow me on Instagram, I guess like that's where I spend most of my time at that Jack Spade. You can find me on Facebook. That's where I spend the most of my time right now. As far as like stuff you should check out, go see Hurricane Heist, man. It's great. It's so good. And when someone finds this podcast in like 5 years, like, what the hell was Hurricane Heist? They're going to watch and be like, why haven't we had 5 sequels to this?
Darren, the same thing happened when you listened to that podcast about the movie Stealth. Stop listening to movies or podcasts about crap movies.
I, like, real quick, because I know you got to end it, but I was hoping that Hurricane Heist ended with, like, all the characters, like, 6 months down the road, like, on a beach somewhere, and then, like, oh, shit, is that an earthquake? Hurricane Heist 2 coming soon. Or Earthquake Heist 2.
Rumble.
Like, I want him to go through all the natural disasters.
And there's a heist plan for each of these?
Yes.
See, how do you track never mind. I'm not a Hollywood producer. Why am I on it? Again, ladies and gentlemen, that's Jack Spade.
Hi. Bye.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. For more info, including how you can help us keep the lights on by donating to our Patreon, visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com, or you can hit us up on social media like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites that the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you consume those amazing podcasts that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you're interested in contacting JJ, go to www.linebenders.com. After this, I've got to go and figure out what kimchi is. I keep seeing it on menus, but I'm not quite sure what it's cabbage, I think, but I'm not sure.